Hi, and welcome to our video series where we will take a look at our ALF-IPCON-HDMI PTZ controller. This is part 1, and in this video we will take a general overview look at the controller, its layout and its setup menu. Okay, let's get right into it. Let's take a tour of the controller from the top left to the right, and we'll go through each little button and see what each button does and what the use cases are. So starting on the top left, we have the auto white balance button. So by pressing the auto white balance button, it'll put the camera that's been selected. So if you have camera 1 selected, then camera 1 will go back to auto white balance. If you then press the button to the right, white balance mode, that will cycle through the different white balance modes that the camera has. Same with the auto exposure button, so that's the next button down. That changes the iris or shutter exposure on the exposure mode, sorry. If you press auto exposure, it puts the camera back into auto mode. Again, pressing the exposure mode will change the camera from either full manual exposure, so you can control both the iris and the shutter, or it will be an iris priority or shutter priority, or I think brightness priority on some cameras as well. Then we have our zoom speed up and down, so that will adjust the speed of the zoom when adjusting the zoom on the camera. Then we have our 2 rocker switches for control over the cameras. So the first one is your zoom, so you can zoom to wide and tele on your camera. So that's a quick push button that adjusts left to right. And the same with the focus button. Once you have your zoom position, you can then also manually adjust your focus by rocking towards the wide or the tele side of the lens for zoom. If I then just quickly come down to the bottom here, then we have the autofocus. So if you are in manual focus, if you've adjusted your focus, it will automatically go into manual focus. By pressing the autofocus button, that will then bring the camera back into autofocus mode. And then you have a focus speed up and a focus speed down button as well to adjust the focus speed and how quickly the camera focuses in on a position. I'll just take it up from here going upwards. Then we have the OSD menu, and we have the menu enter and menu back button. So once you press the OSD button or your OSD menu button, that will bring up the on-screen display of the camera's menu that's on board on the camera. And then you will navigate back and forward through the menu with your menu enter and menu back buttons, as well as guiding up and down, left and right with the joystick controller as well. There we have a backlight on and off button. We have our setup button, and then we have 4 custom function buttons. We'll discuss these in a future episode in a little bit more detail, but there's various functions that you can automatically program or that you can program into the controller. So if you press F1, it'll perform a specific function, or F2, it'll perform a specific function. So we'll take a look at those in a future episode as well. Then we have our Cam 1 through Cam 6 buttons. So these are quick access buttons, so you can access you have quick access to cameras 1 through 6 by just pressing on the quick selection buttons. The scene and set call button we'll discuss also in a future episode, but that is a way to make group scene recalls. So in other words, I can set up 3 cameras and set preset 1 on each camera to be call 1, for instance. It means it will recall all 3 cameras simultaneously to preset 1, or whatever preset's been programmed into that specific scene. So you can set up a variety of different scenes with a variety of different cameras. You don't have to select all the cameras into all scenes. You can do 2 cameras, 5 cameras. If you have 10 cameras, you can do that too. But that's a quick way to make a group preset recall of the selected cameras for a specific scene. And we'll cover that in a future episode as well, of how to set that up and control that. Then coming back down, we have our camera button. So we press camera, or we press Cam 1, enter, and that will select our camera. So you can select then any of the 254 cameras or 255 cameras that you can program onto the unit. Again, when you're using IP control, that is where the limitation will be of how many network IP addresses are available on the network. So if you have a completely open network, you can do quite a bit of cameras on a network. The set button is to store presets. So let's move my camera into position. I can press set 1 and enter, and it will store that as the preset. As well, any commands or any buttons that you press will come up here at the bottom of the screen to show you what action has been taken on that. Similarly then, coming down, if I press call 1 and enter, that will then also recall that preset that I've just stored into preset 1. Then we have our home button. Our home button takes our camera back to its home position. We have an escape button for the setup menu. If you're inside the setup menu, then you can press escape. We have our number keypads for any number inputs, any numeric keypad inputs that you need to perform. There's also it's an alphanumeric keypad, so you can do letters and numbers, as well as then do some navigation through here in specific menus with the arrow buttons. And then we have our enter button as mentioned before. Coming to the left of the screen, we have a gain manual or a gain up and down button. That gain is to do with the white balance, as well as, for instance, if you are in brightness priority mode, that will gain the gain on the camera. If you are in if you're on exposure mode, either full manual or shutter priority or aperture priority, then the iris and shutter button will adjust the settings for the iris. And basically, all 4 of these buttons you can push down to select different modes. There I've got the shutter, press it again, I have the iris. Press it again, back to shutter. So that's how you would select either iris or shutter, and then once I've selected iris, I can change the position of the iris or similarly the shutter. On the top right, also to do with your white balance, that's your red and blue gain, positive and negative. Again, pressing the button will bring us into red gain or blue gain on the camera. That's again is effective when you are in manual white balance mode. And then the last rotary encoder there is for our pan and tilt speed and preset speed. So again, pressing it will change between pan and tilt speed and preset speed. And again, you can adjust that going up and down. Again then, as usual, we have our joystick that controls the camera. So up, down, left and right movement, so your pan and tilt movement, as well as then a wide and a tele zoom function on twisting of the joystick. And then it's also an activation button on the top, and you'll see it if it shows on screen there. If I press and hold it down, it will enable the analog mode or digital mode for a specific control of a camera that you're doing. Okay, let's have a look at the screen. So the screen is giving us quite a lot of information as it is just on the home screen. Starting at the very top, that is the native IP. That is the IP of the controller itself. Then it shows us the second line down is the camera. That's the camera that's selected at the moment. It's camera 1. It then shows us what configuration the camera is in or that controller is in, whether it's Onvif control, UDP, Visca UDP, Visca TCP control. There's also on this IPCON-HDMI NDI control. So we also have the ability to do NDI control on this controller. Then shows you the then shows you the IP address of the camera. So camera 1 right now is set to 5.170. That's just the default state for the unit. So there's no cameras connected or set up on the unit at the moment. Then you have the target port number. So again, based on what network protocol you're using, whether it's Onvif or TCP, UDP or NDI or Sony Visca, then that port number will change, and your target port number you can set up per camera. If you are in analog mode, there's a few information details there for analog, which is your RS-232 or serial control of your cameras. Then it shows us what the active protocol is. So we are currently in network protocol on this camera 1 that's selected. And then you'll see it says connection timeout, and that's purely just because there's no camera connected on that IP address on the controller at the moment, because it's not been set up. Okay, so then if I press the setup button, it goes into the main menu, and from here there's a few settings that you can do, and we're just going to run through them very briefly. So the first is the add a network device, and that is to add a network-based camera. So if I press it, you'll see it'll go into the next menu, and we'll cover this in a separate video shortly. So that will set up the camera. If I now press escape, you'll see it'll go back one menu item. The second option is to add an analog device. So that would be a serial RS-232 or 485 controlled device. I can then also connect to, I can also then inquire my device list, and that is an auto search of the network to see what cameras are available. Again, we'll cover that in a future video. Then the next menu down, number 4, is the network attributes of the controller itself. So what is its IP settings that has been set to? So currently this unit is in static. Again, we'll go through that in a separate video to show you the setup of the controller. Next up, you can change your language. You can also change the button tones. If I press a button, whether the keyboard makes a beep sound or not. So that it's in default, it's in off mode. If you do want to turn it on so you can hear it, you can. But obviously, if you're working in a production environment, you might not want the buttons to be making a sound when you're selecting things, so it's in off by default. Then we have the restore factory settings. So that brings the controller back to this setting now, which is the factory default. We have some information on the system to show you software versions, hardware versions, web version, gateway, subnet mask, MAC address. So that's all my additional settings for my network and my software versions of the controller itself. Then we can enable or disable the Visca response. In other words, the controller will wait for a response from a camera once it's sent a command to make sure that command has been received and actioned by the camera itself. And again, in default mode, it is off, so it's been disabled. And then we can also turn the backlight on and off. If I turn the backlight off, then you'll see the buttons will change color, so the backlight is off. If I turn it back on, then the backlights will turn on and the camera will show which buttons are selected on the system. Okay, that is a general overview, and please stay tuned, like and subscribe, hit the bell notification, and we'll see you on the next part.